going to make it fair for everybody. We know that there's one big brother watching over all of us.
And while Big Brother watched, the racers' crews and vehicles slept solidly through the night. At least, that was the theory. But the next morning, it would be racing at speed past some spectacular scenery and over the roughest terrain, which was due to test drivers, vehicles and crews to the limit, and then beyond. As the last-minute adjustments were made and the last-minute coffee was consumed to settle the nerves, Hluhluwe reflected back on yet another pole position.
Prologue went very well for us. The vehicle didn't have any hiccup. We went quite quick. We knew that we had to start in the front. It's always good to start in the front, especially if there's dust. I don't know if there's going to be dust today. But we're leading the production cars, and that's by only 1 second, but that's enough to lead, and kick some dust up for the other guys, And yeah, it's also good to have the other two sandmasters probably ahead of you clearing the road, and then we'll see how it goes through the day on the second and third loop, and we're going to try and win.
And when Hluhluwe says that, he means it. The tension in the paddock was palpable, as the teams really did not know what to expect from this unknown route. Some even went the extra 9 yards, like the Toyota crew.
Yeah, we put in a bit of an extra push to get up into the front, and now there's big pressure. 1 second behind Hannes, so if he makes the wrong turn, we get through. We've just got to keep it there, and then obviously the guys are coming from everywhere, all sides, and you don't know how the race is going to pan out. But the car's going well, and I'd really like to win at all costs. So that's what we are up there to go and try and achieve.
Then the racers got a traditional Zulu welcome, and the Elephant Coast certainly showed the whole off-road circus a thing or two about hospitality. The Nissan Hluhluwe 400 continues right after this.
Vehicle and asset finance from ABSA. Going the extra mile to get you asset finance from ABSA. Going off the beaten track to find solutions.
With a clock ticking down to start time, proper tension was high as Alfie Cox stormed away from the start line. With 3 loops over 120 odd kilometers each and a 15-minute compulsory stop at the designated service point penciled in. Hluhluwe was 39 seconds behind the specials in 3rd overall, in the ideal position, but Berthold was all over his exhaust pipe. The father and son team Nick and Ryan Harper next in the Atlas Copco, with Varayawa and Rousseau all over them in turn. But overnight drizzle had made some parts of the course slippery and very tricky, but once it dried out, Cox was batting along nicely, and he was taking no bull. Hutchison is quick and fearless, and he was pushing hard, but he'd lost a lot of ground to Cox, who was doing some low flying. While Hluhluwe had the Castrol Toyota in his rearview mirror as large as an oil tanker. And with all that pressure, the national champ made a vital mistake and wrong-slotted. Houghton picked it up off his race notes, and all of a sudden they were leading the production car class. How quickly things change. For the Harpers, the Hluhluwe route was tailor-made, and their new charge, the big Atlas Copco, enjoyed it and took full advantage. And here's the reason why it's good to win the prologue. If you win it, it means you don't eat dust like this. Woolridge and Schulthammer were going well but could not drive away from Alberts and Hunter in the Rapsa bat. With Foss and Pitchford still in the top 9 and going hard but conservatively after having passed the Barlow-World Armstrong absolute forward of Schroeder and Huxtable. While their teammate Brandon Harkis and John Moore were solid in the 3rd Ford Racing Ranger. But there wasn't time to blink. The De Bruins were also chasing hard in their Toyota. Every second counted in this part of the field. For Tollefson and Evans, there was drama as they were hit by a flying special. Let's listen in.
Going left again into 100.
he hit us.
Going right, going right.
I'm good. I think he hit us.
Has he caused damage or?
No. But I just felt something in the rear.
I think he hit us on that corner, to be honest.
No,
okay,
no, later.
100 going left. Here.
Luckily, out of the firing line, it was 2005 champ Terence Marsh and Pieter Groenewald in the top 20 and 10th in class. But having to watch the beside notes and then the cries like a hawk behind him. Richard Schilling and his trusty co-driver Chris Davies were still handsomely leading Class S. But the Zermatten's Raubi Nissan was just one car caught in the mayhem after Roacon's Peter Ruthven wrong-slotted, reversed and hit Chris Visser's Toyota in the process. Frustration as the precious seconds leaked away. Visser looked for a place to park to assess the damage, found one and pulled off. But that was the end of the road for him. No such troubles for Cox though, as he blasted the motorbike back over the dry parts of the course on the way to completing the first loop. It was becoming a drama-filled contest though, as Hutchison and Bergman flattered, but they coolly, calmly and effectively repaired to get going again. ASAP actually. Further ahead, navigator Marcel Trethry was pretending to be a marshal for the Harpers who'd flown up the order and overtaken everyone, including Cox, who'd broken a gearbox and had to retire. Nearing the end of the first loop, the motorite lads had to do more running repairs before they could set off again, and this time they'd also lost second gear. That was the end of their run too, but both top contenders out within minutes of each other, and in the background, Toyota was still leading the cavalcade. In contrast, Yawa and Rousseau were having a trouble-free run and were second overall and in class. Krobler in a brand new Nissan Navara was third fastest and second in the production car class. With the Rapsabat of Alberts and Hunter clocking the third fastest time for Loop 1, one position up from where they started. While the De Bruins were also working their way right up the order. Brothers David and Gary White had impressed all and sundry with their big move up the order from 24th. They were up into the top 15 overall. And as Brandon Harker stopped at the level crossing, he must have been hopeful of a good finish after stating that he would use the first few races to feel out the big Ford Ranger. With the sun drying things out, but with that producing dust, Gibson and Brown were taking advantage of the open road ahead of them. And the same went for Terence Marsh and Pieter Groenewald in the Nasho Mobile Regent Racing Gymco. But right behind them, the Cries were applying the pressure. With Gary Gilligan and Peter van Vuren clocking the 6th fastest time for loop number 1. Foss and Pitchford were going smoothly, but would soon start experiencing starter motor problems, which slowed them dramatically. Schilling and Davies were steady as she goes and up into the top 8 in the specials, but leading Class S by quite a margin. They started 26th in the prologue and 17th in the specials. For the Barkhuizens, things were going swimmingly. But some parts hadn't quite dried out, leaving no traction, and there wasn't a lot of patience out there either.
Mooi man. 300 meter gaan jy reg.
The Western Cape Spares Bezuidenhout and Johan de Bruin in their Redenko bat were up into the top 12 in the specials and second in Class B. While the Duplessis, Yuri and Andre had also made their way into the top 20 after starting in 33rd place. With BB Auto stablemates Arnold Duplessis and Johan Knox right behind them and chasing like the clappers. The Zermattens were still going well in their Nissan hardbody and nailing some of the slower traffic on the way, Screamer blaring their coming. Pilot Ramon Besaidnout and co-driver Stefan Locke in a Toyota were shooting up the position log, and all of a sudden they were leading Class D after starting 39th. The deploys, Chris and Christian's orange and black livery, drew an eye or two, and so did their early driving. They'd started off in 56th place and passed a lot of teams, with Brian Martin and Oki Fourie applying pressure in their Castrol Toyota, and Thomas Rundle and Brian Roberts in the Baden Tyres Nissan following suit. An early altercation with a very firm object left Mark de Schlein and Alistair Stubbs' Viper going sideways, and they knew they were beaten.
Yeah, we're fine.
You're right.
Yeah.
What did you do this time?
We were caught out by two jumps, and the first one set us up badly. We ended up hitting a hole in the second one, and we did a good bend to the beam on the front of the car. So unfortunately, that's that.
That's off-road racing. Lothar and Owen Rocha were very impressive in their Sandmaster and rode a super fast first lap to overtake a whole bunch of cars. They'd made up 20 places and were still climbing. While Klaus and Fritz Etzel were leading the way for Class E racers Jack Peckham and Lucio Santora in their factory Ford Racing Ranger. Richard Everingham was going well on his own-some lonesome, with another single-seater racer Gary Campbell just happy to see our cameras. He was obviously very lonely. Back at the designated service point stop after one flat-out loop, it was the Atlas Copco of the Harpers back first, with a gap of about 2 minutes over Shamir Varayawa. But there was some serious drama for the leaders in the Castrol Toyota Hilux of Bevan Berthold and Robin Houghton. They stormed home, but just meters from the pits, a ball joint broke. As it was, the engine had overheated after the radiator grids had got clogged. Berthold was still confident, though, at that stage.
Yeah, it's been very nice. It's been the first time we've been able to pass in this and outright, and then lead for a whole lap. And unfortunately, it looks like a ball joint may have broken, so they're just going to replace that. And we got a lot of grass from following so close to Hannes for quite a long time. So the engine's got a bit hot, so maybe we can get it going again, just try to get a finish. But we're developing, we're on the right road, and I think with a new car, we'll be able to fight these guys nicely now.
For the other crews, there was a lot of heartache and repair work to be done. Some had overheated due to mud getting into engines. Others hit a few trees that jumped out at them. And in Mark Corbett's case, well, there was a mechanical and the wipers wouldn't listen either.
Oh, so hard. Can you bend them over? Can you not bend over the arm? Yes, you can. Yeah, it's always so deep in there.
Yeah, we've had a few electronic problems with the car. It wouldn't start. We stalled it once, and then once the power just cut. But I think we've got it sorted out now. We should be off quite soon. And then unfortunately the windscreen wipers failed, and there was a whole lot of mud all over the windscreen. I was chasing Brandon, and I didn't see his brake lights, so we bumped him out the way, which I'm sure he won't be pleased about. But other than that, it's going quite well.
Only an off-road racer could have been able to say that. In the Ford camp, Manfred Schroeder was his normal, quiet, effective self.
It's not too bad. This morning, unfortunately, we wrong slotted, and as I turned around, the motor cut again. And we've got a brand new start, a brand new battery in there, but it didn't want to start. So we had to wait for Jack to come, and then he towed us and got going again. And then the last about 40 k's, we broke a front drive shaft. Yeah, so we have to replace that.
And replace it they did. The life of a mechanic in the middle of the African bush on a Saturday afternoon. Back out on the road, though, and Nick and son